Hello and welcome back to India on 99.94, your home for Indian cricket content. I'm Nikesh Ragani, host, commentator for the BBC and SEN, and Sarah Warris, my co-host alongside me of Wisden. Sarah, we're going to focus on Jasprit Bumrah and Bumrah only in this episode, although I suppose it would only be fair to just quickly reel through, very briefly, India's really impressive series victory over South Africa in the latest T20 bilateral. They won the second match yesterday as we're recording this podcast right now, so they take an unassailable 2-0 series lead. Batting first, 237 for 3. It was all perfect, really, wasn't it? KL Rahul striking at over 200 for his 57 from 28. Rohit Sharma, 43. Virat Kohli, 49 not out off just 28. And Suryakumar Yadav, what a player he is. Best in the world right now, I'd say, in this format of the game by far. 61 from 22. And then even DK at the end, a little 17 not out from 7 deliveries. So the batting was all good, brilliant actually, better than could be expected. And then South Africa batted pretty well, or maybe India's bowlers let them bat a little too well, because they posted 221 for 3. And really, anyone can get Millard on their day, and David Miller, 106 not out of 47. Quinton de Kock as well. We've seen him in the IPL over so many years. He's used to these conditions in India. 69 not out as well for him. But it was disappointing, wasn't it? It just took the shine off that victory, the fact that India allowed South Africa to score 221, and it was a lot closer. Look, they were never really in with a shout of winning the match, but it was a lot closer than they should have really allowed them to get, particularly after having them 47 for 3 and then just allowing them off the hook with that huge partnership, that record-breaking partnership between de Kock and Miller. And apart from Deepak Chahar, who went for 6 and over, brilliant spell from him, 4 overs, none for 24. The rest of them, it was all very predictable, Sarah. And I suppose that brings us back to the topic of Jasprit Bumrah not in the side, and they look all at sea without him, don't they?
Yeah, without him, who is your death bowler? Okay, there is Arshdeep Singh, but he will have his off days like he had one yesterday. He went for 62 in his 4 overs, which is like a lot. And if he has an off day, then who is there? There's Harshar Patel. He has an economy rate of 10.9 in the death overs in T20Is. Bhuvi, we've seen what he can and can't do. So, yeah, it's just... anyway, Indians are scarred of T20 events, with all that's happened in the last 10 years or so. And now going into the T20 World Cup again with such issues, it's, the fear is high. And I don't know how India can, in such short span, just hope for a miracle and just hope all of us combined and pray that Bumrah is fit in time. That's all that India can do.
Look, it's like, I don't know if you've got a Disney Plus subscription or you're into your Disney movies, but in Disney's latest musical, Encanto, there's a song called We Don't Talk About Bruno. And you just change the words a little bit, and it's the BCCI's take on Bumrah. We don't talk about Bumrah. They're not giving us anything, are they, really? Nothing concrete. It's all bits and bobs, dribs and drabs, sources supposedly leaking stuff. I mean, look... where are we on Jasprit Bumrah? I mean, we heard he was out for 6 months, sources told us a few days ago. Then a day later, Sourav Ganguly, who's the president of the BCCI, so he should know, he should be kept in the loop with these sort of things, saying, well, actually, he's not ruled out of the World Cup. It's not quite as serious as has been reported. Then we're hearing it's a 4-week thing, and now we're hearing he will travel with the squad to the World Cup, and they'll see how it goes, and they've still got a little bit of time to make changes to their final squad. Well, what is the latest on Jasprit Bumrah and the injury situation? Is he even injured? Are we just being sold some bluffs here, or what is it?
We never know. We don't know. Chetan Sharma does these press conference. He's the chief selector. He does these press conferences once in a blue moon, or when there's a lot of criticism that BCCI doesn't do a press conference, then he just comes up and shows his face in these formality press conferences which just mean nothing. And no one really knows. The one source is saying that he had a fracture which takes 6 months to heal. Another report that came in yesterday says that he has a stress reaction which takes 4 weeks to heal. So it's like, can't the NCA, the National Cricket Academy, don't they know what's going on with Bumrah? He's like one of your most important players. He's not, some youngster upcoming youngster, and you can just treat him like, okay, yeah, he's not important in the team right now. So yeah, his injury can take some time to heal. We'll look at him later. He's Bumrah, your mainstay. And what are these reports like? The NC needs to be questioned at what's happening. Have they not diagnosed Bumrah yet? And also that he played the Australia series, he missed the Asia Cup because of the lower back injury. He then made a comeback to the Australia series. He didn't play the first T20i. Rohit Sharma said that they're resting him. He played the second T20i. He played the second T20i. He bowled 2 overs and that's it. He was injured after that. So was he not fit when he was cleared to play? Because obviously if Rohit Sharma is resting him for the first T20I, it shows that he's not 100% yet. And if he's not 100%, why did he play the second game? Or why was he included in the squad in the first place? So it's just, so many questions, but no one really is there to answer them.
It's just that frustrating lack of communication, isn't it? Once again, from the BCCI, they do it time and time again, whether it's injuries, whether it's, scheduling of series and whatever it might be. The communication is lacking, and that's what frustrates us journalists the most, and also the fans. The fans are the biggest stakeholders of this game. Without the fans, there is no cricket. There is no BCCI juggernaut really. Without these 1.5 billion fans buying into everything that the Indian cricket team does, so it is incredibly frustrating. Of course, the NCA will know, and the medical team will know exactly what the situation is with Bumrah. I suppose the question is, why do they feel the need to keep these kind of things so secretive? Because it's not going to give you any kind of advantage hiding the extent of any kind of injury. Look, he's fit, he plays. He's not fit, he doesn't play. And it's as simple as that. And I don't think it matters to, obviously, look, opposing teams will, rejoice if Bumrah is injured for the entirety of the World Cup and they don't have to face Bumrah when they're playing India, of course. But that's a factual thing. If he's not fit, he's not going to play anyway. So I just don't understand the secretive nature. Is that how you feel about it as well? It's just, it's not doing anybody any good, is it?
Yeah. And probably, I think the BCCI sort of had an inkling. Again, this is just assumptions, but sort of, I feel they had an inkling that maybe Bumrah won't be fit fully because, suddenly they gave a call up to Shami in the T20I setup after a few months ago reports came in that the selectors have told him he's not in the plans anymore. Then suddenly, they just call up Shami and have him as a standby for the T20 World Cup, which was just bizarre. So maybe his selection was because they had a feeling Bumrah might not be fit, and they just had to get in some sort of experience in the squad. And if Bumrah wasn't fit, then they could have drafted Shami into the World Cup squad directly. Obviously, he had COVID, so it just just ruined their plans. Another thing is Siraj, who replaced Bumrah in the South Africa squad. So he was playing county, but he left county less than a week ago, just a few days before getting called up for South Africa series because of personal reasons. So, just again, sort of, I think BCCI had some inkling that Bumrah might not be fit. So that's why they got in, they asked Siraj to fly down. They got in Shami into the T20I plans all of a sudden. which again, is just what's going on with the BCCI, what's going on with the NCA. Why are you treating the main stakeholders, the players, like shit, so to say?
Yeah, basically that sums it up. Really, you mentioned a couple of those players who could potentially replace him if he was to miss the World Cup. We're going to take a short break here, and then we'll discuss those possible replacements on the other side.
You're listening to Cricket's Conversation on 99.94. Whatever your team, we have the show for you on podcast, YouTube, or on the 99.94 app. We have India, England, South Africa, West Indies, and now Sri Lanka covered. If you want to find us, the best way is to follow us on social media at 9994DM by downloading the 9994 app or Google 99.94 on podcast. We speak cricket.
So then, Siraj, Shami, who's your money on? If Bumrah does miss the World Cup, who is going to be drafted in his place? Is it one of those two, or do they go back to somebody like an Umran Malik, maybe, just for the extra pace and the unknown? Is that too big a risk, you feel?
A few episodes ago, I would have wanted Umran Malik in the team desperately, just gets in that extra space. And even recently in the Irani Cup, we saw he picked up 3 wickets and they were brilliant Yorkers. And, he just troubled the batsmen. But then on his day, he can be expensive. And that's something that India are already struggling with. I don't have a clear candidate in mind. Who do you think is the best bet, or who can come in? Because
I don't like either of those two as T20 bowlers, Shami or Siraj. Shami, look, he's tried and tested. We've seen it, and as good as he is with the new ball, and as good as I think he will be with the new ball in Australian conditions, particularly with the length that he bowls, unless you've got ability to bowl him all 4 in the first sort of half of the innings, I think again, he's going to be expensive towards the back end because he doesn't bowl Yorkers as consistently well as the others, or some of the others, particularly Bumrah. I mean, nobody really does, but even you got Arshdeep, and even Hershel's a slightly better option, despite his stats showing that he's expensive at the death of the innings. He's got a better Yorker than Shami, and that sort of dipping slower ball Yorker that he has is pretty effective when he gets it right. Shami tends to just bowl decent length in the death of the innings, and that's so hittable. And Siraj, again, on his day can be extremely dangerous, but he needs everything to go in his favour, and he's very much a rhythm bowler. And you just have that one bad day, and the fact he's not been in the team, you see, he's not a settled player within that squad, within that setup. I think reintroducing him at this stage, it might just be too late, and he again can be very expensive if he doesn't quite click. So I don't like either of those two. I mean, Deepak Chahar, the way he bowled in the previous match, is he the man to then take up that mantle? But again, he can't bowl at the death. So you're back in that situation of, okay, you've got Arshdeep and hopefully he comes good more often than not at the death. But who else have you got? You need to bowl in partnerships at the death. And I think it's too risky going in with a spinner at the death as well. Yeah. I mean, Akshar could be an option, firing in those darts, but that's a huge risk, isn't it? So, I mean, there is a real lack of death bowling options. Do you go with Herschel? Would you do that?
Right now, I don't see any other option. I think it was always going to be between Arshdeep and Herschel in the 11. But now I think Herschel, because of Bumrah possibly not being there, I hope he is and everything works out perfectly. But in that case, I think it will be Bhuvi obviously up front, Herschel and Arshdeep, because it's too late, as you said, to get in anyone. Siraj, he had a brilliant IPL last year, but then, this year he was just wayward and gave runs, plenty of runs. And on his day when he concedes runs, he just goes for plenty. There's, no in between with him. Same with Shami, and Shami also, like, his last professional match was, I think, in July. So he's been away for a while, and he's coming back from COVID, which must have weakened him a bit. So directly pushing him into the T20 setup just seems. It's not, I think, the best move, and there are no other options. There is Shardul Thakur, but then again, he's not the that lethal bowler, so to say. Yeah, he can pick wickets, but he doesn't scare the batsman that way. So,
although having said that, so it might be a little bit of a myth about, particularly in T20 cricket, about you need the extra pace in Australia. Well, the pitches give you the extra pace and the extra bounce anyway. And if you get it in the right areas, you can be a Bhuvi and be successful. You can be a Shardul and be successful, as he was in the last T20 series that India played down under in Australia. He was very good in that series and picked up wickets and didn't go for too many runs. So it could be an option, but the fact they haven't gone to him yet suggests that he's not in their thinking. I mean, you mentioned Bhuvi there. He's had his injury problems over the years as well, as have several high-profile players over the past few years and the past decade, really. And it's always been the same issue, hasn't it, with the NCA, the BCCI, the lack of communication, doctors not really allowed to come out and give statements or tell people the extent of these injuries. I mean, you've covered quite a bit of this in your time, haven't you? Just give us some more context as to what the process has been in the past.
Yeah, so we spoke about the NCA being not consistent with their injury diagnosis, and if Bumrah wasn't fit, then why did he play? So this is not the first time that something like this has happened. In 2018, there were two cases regarding Ridhiman Saha and Bhuvneshwar Kumar. So first, Ridhiman Saha, so he sustained a shoulder injury after the 2018 tour to South Africa. He complained of an injury and he had a tear, so he got injections, but he was cleared to play in the IPL that followed. In the IPL, he complained of a shoulder injury again, but the same tear was diagnosed, but there were no steps taken to pull him out, and he was just given injections and he was cleared fit to play. He had a thumb injury during the IPL which ruled him out, and during scans for his thumb, it was later revealed that his shoulder injury had become so worse that he needed surgery ASAP. He was ruled out of England test series that year that followed in 2018, and he couldn't pick up a bat for 2 months that followed. So, he had reported his injuries. It's not that he hid his injuries, he reported his injuries. He kept going to the NCA and he got injections also. But, there was no step taken, and no one told him that, it's so bad. And he continued playing. There were no attempts taken to pull him out also, which is just bizarre. That's not how the NC of the richest board works. And then a few months later, similar incident regarding Bhuvneshwar Kumar happened. So he had a niggle on his lower back during the 2018 IPL. He didn't play consistently. But he after the IPL, there was the tour to England. He passed the fitness test. He was cleared to play. During the third ODI, he complained of back pain, and he was thereafter ruled out of the test series that followed in 2018 because of the back pain. 2019 World Cup, he missed a few games because of the same back injury. And after he played despite having the injury, he played the 2019 World Cup despite the injury. In 2019, he was ruled out of the 2019 West Indies series because he aggravated the lower back injury, which selectors and BCCI officials later said had never fully recovered. So, he had the back injury first in 2018, and it never really recovered. They played him in the World Cup. They kept selecting him the squad. And I think possibly that's a major reason why, Bhuvi's test career has had the abrupt ending. And it's so unfortunate that, it's not really the player's fault. Somewhere these doctors or, whoever is in charge of the NCA, they need to have a long, hard look at what's going on. And sorry, I know I've been, going on. But, when Hardik Pandya had that injury, his back injury, he didn't go to the NCA. And a few senior players have also expressed disappointment at the treatment they get at the NCA. So, again, it's not just us who are complaining, it's the players also. So
you would think at the NCA of the richest board, as you say, they would have the best doctors at their disposal. But obviously, the players don't all agree with that. I mean, it's just a sad situation that players feel that way, and the fact that we don't get to know about the extent of these players' injuries until a lot later in their careers. I mean, some of them will get injured, they'll come back, we won't really know what's happened, and then they'll play for another couple of years, and then they'll have a recurrence of something, but we won't know that they're having a recurrence because we won't know what the extent of the first injury was anyway. So, whether or not Bumrah has had these specific problems, whatever is wrong with him at the moment, something to do with his back. I mean, we're being told several different things. Whether it's a recurrence or whether it's a first-time injury, we just don't know. I mean, look, his action, by the way, I remember being on commentary with Charles Dagnall for the BBC back in, I think it was 2017. It may have been before that, but it might have been the 2017 Champions Trophy in England. And he took one look at Bumrah's action and said, and obviously Bumrah wasn't the world beater that we all know and love now, back then. So he was just coming onto the scene. So, he was bowling okay, but he took one look at Bumrah and said, and as a former bowler as well, Charles Dagnall was a professional cricketer for Leicestershire and won the T20 Blast a couple of times as well. He was a good cricketer in his time, a bowler as well, and said he won't last an entire career bowling like that. He's going to break his back at some stage. And, hopefully that's not the case. Hopefully it's not as serious as we think it might be, but his action is, as I suppose, it's as beautiful as it is, as weird as it is, but as effective as it is, it can cause him problems in terms of injuries. It just looks awkward. It looks difficult. It's hard to replicate, and it's very, very unnatural as well. And given all that, it's going to take a real specialist to be able to solve this problem and get him back on the pitch playing. And do they have that specialist at the NCA? That is the question. Have they got these people at their disposal, or does Bumrah need to seek out a specialist of his own? Does he need to go overseas, to find the leading back specialist in the world? We just don't know, because we don't know the extent of the injury, and that ultimately is the most frustrating thing, isn't it?
Yeah. Even Michael Holding, I think in a few years ago, he had said the same thing about Bumrah, that he said something like his ability to hit the deck hard is unique, but his short run up makes him injury prone, so it's unfortunate. And also, like you were just talking about the NCA, and I'm just wondering, that I don't know how it works, but VVS Lakshman is the head of the NCA right now. So how does that work? He's a player. He was a former player. I don't think he specializes in treating players or these medical diagnoses and all. So I don't know why a player or former player is in charge.
He's a clever guy. I think he's a qualified engineer and all, but he's not a medical doctor.
Yeah. So,
but look, he's in charge of the NCA, ultimately in charge of the players who are developing at the NCA and the sort of younger players, and that is his role there. He's not in charge of medical operations at the NCA, and that's obviously a different department. But yeah, you'd think putting your name to something like that as head of the academy, you would have a bit more say. I suppose he's the boss, isn't he? Everybody kind of looks up to him. He could potentially be in charge of hiring and firing, but the way the BCCI works, he's probably not, is he? They've given him that title as head and the boss and the main man, but probably hasn't got that power, has he? It's probably all in the hands of the central BCCI, Jay Shah, Saurav Ganguly, probably all Jay Shah, to be honest, in terms of the hiring and firing. But it's just, look, we could go on and on about our frustrations at the lack of communication, but go on.
Yeah, I just have, while thinking of all this, I just randomly remembered Umesh Yadav. He was playing in county and he pulled out because of some injury. And the very same day or the next day, I think, his name was announced in the Australia T20i squad. So, again, how does that work? Was it a real injury, or did he just say he's injured because he had to pull out of county? But then he could have pulled out of county if he was getting a call up for the Indian team. So is he not fit, but he's still playing for India? Or I don't know how that works.
Who knows? Who knows? Right. I suppose the big question is, how do India cope without Bumrah? Can they have success at the World Cup without Bumrah? And we're going to take another short break here. And on the other side, we will discuss just that.
If you love the language of cricket and want more, then head over to the 99.94 app and you can hear all of our podcasts and cricket commentary. We're adding new shows all the time and covering cricket series from all over the world. Be the first to hear all of our announcements by following us on social media at 9994DM. Welcome to Cricket's Conversation.
So can India win the T20 World Cup? They've not done it since 2007, remember, with some bloody good players in between those times and now. Can they win it without Jasprit Bumrah? Yes or no?
If they score 250 every innings, why not?
Yeah, big if. And I tweeted that out yesterday. That's one way to cope with Bumrah being injured and being out of the World Cup. Just bat first, score 230 plus, and you should be okay. Should being the ultimate word, because it was still close, wasn't it? Against South Africa, they got to 221. So look, it's a one-off match. The pitch was good. South Africa have every right to bat just as well as India. They've got some quality players in there. But you just think with the scoreboard pressure and with the quality of bowling on paper that India have got, it should be a foregone conclusion, which, all right, South Africa, they were never ahead of the game. They never looked like they were going to win. They were always just a little bit too far behind. But the fact they got to 221 and took a lot of the Indian bowling attack to pieces doesn't send good signals. And it's that, again, that frustration of Deepak Chahar bowls well, really well. Just the 6 runs and over off his 4. Everybody else gets hammered. The next game, Deepak Chahar could turn up, go at 15 and over, and everyone else could go at 10s and 11s. And then there could be one guy like an Akshar Patel who bowls at 6. And, there's never that consistency, is there? There's never more than one, sometimes 2 bowlers who have really good games. They never seem to be able to, in recent times, pull it together as a unit. They still keep winning. They keep winning these bilateral series. And, it's time and time and time again, they keep doing it. But it's the tournaments. It's when you come up against different sides game after game and you can't sort of get used to one opposition. And there's more pressure, obviously, in tournaments like the Asia Cup we saw, like the last T20 World Cup. It's those pressure situations where they can't come together as a unit, the bowlers, and just put on a really good performance. It's not happened for such a long time. And that's the biggest issue, isn't it? And do they have a leader? Who's the leader of this bowling attack? Answer that.
Bhuvi? But he'll be out
if
of the game.
If you're getting hammered, the problem is that you've got to lead by example as well, right?
Yeah.
He's not
he'll be out of the game in the first 10, 12 overs.
Yeah.
So, yeah.
Well, he should be, although he's not always, is he? He sometimes comes in, bowls those 19th overs and gets hammered in recent times. But he's not the most vocal. So he's not your Virat Kohli type character who's going to G up the bowling attack that way. So you've got to lead by example then. And he can do that with the new ball. But then when he's bowling at the death and getting hammered, and it just doesn't send good signals to the rest of the side. So Bumrah is the leader of the attack. When he's playing, there's just that aura about him that everybody just lifts their game automatically because, we'll be okay today. We've got Jussie Bhai in the team, and he's our leader, and we'll all follow him into battle, and we'll walk through walls for him. But it's not the same when it's somebody like Bhuvi, and if Bhuvi doesn't play, if something happens to him or whatever, hopefully he sort of carries on his good form with the new ball at least. But who else is there? I mean, Deepak Chahar is quite new. Arshdeep's very new. Harshal's
and even Ashwin,
new.
even Ashwin is not going to play all matches. So
Exactly.
that puts the bowling attack will be so inexperienced. Which
I mean, Akshar, as good as he is, he's inexperienced as well at this level compared to some of the others. When you look down the options that would be available if everyone was fit, so there is a real lack of experience, and I suppose that might be one reason why they've gone to somebody like a Shami as an option potentially to bring in just that extra bit of experience, and the fact that Shami doesn't get overawed by too many situations, does he? He doesn't say much, but he's a cool guy. His body language is always laid back, never gets overly stressed about anything, which might be the vibes that are quite similar to Bumrah in some ways in terms of those characteristics. So yeah, there's just no clear leader. I mean, I think they're going to struggle to win the World Cup. I think they'll put in some good performances, but no, I don't think it's going to happen.
Also, what's scary is that, I saw a tweet a few days ago that Indians just know that the law of averages for Surya Kumar Yadav will catch up in the World Cup, in the T20 World Cup. It just happens. And that's even more scary that, yesterday, despite scoring 237, they won by 16 runs. So you can't expect the batting to, score 250 runs in every match realistically. They will have the off days, and then the bowling will have to take the onus of stepping up, which hasn't been the case recently. Even the first T20i against Australia, they lost despite scoring 200, 210 odd. So it's just, I don't see India. It would be a huge, right now my expectations are at the lowest. I would be surprised even if they qualify for the next stage. That's the expectations I'm going in with, because I've seen how high expectations can hurt India, not only in the Asia Cup, but over the last 10 years. So just minimum expectations, and whatever happens, okay, bonus.
Yeah, well, I mean, the fact that they're up against Pakistan again is that's pressure in itself as well. So, that's the first hurdle to cross, I suppose. From a psychological point of view as well, look, it's not just about us in the media creating hype around this match. It is massive. It's the biggest rivalry in world sport bar none. Don't care what anyone else says. And there is that pressure of, over 1.5 billion people, expecting you to win that match. And the same for Pakistan with their 200-300 million people, whatever it is, expecting exactly the same. And there's going to be huge hype, but also just to beat a good side, because they are a good side on their day, a very good side. And they beat India in the last match that they played at the Asia Cup. It was 1-1 in terms of matches played there, but that one was the killer blow, really, because it sort of almost ended India's chances there and then, based on the other results that they got after that, losing to Sri Lanka and stuff. So
it was the first match that exposed the death bowling issues, so to say. After that, the Sri Lanka and all that followed. So
yeah. Well, there is another. I mean, we'll park the men to one side, and we'll no doubt talk more on Bumrah and the T20 World Cup in the coming days as we get more information. Hopefully, fingers crossed, as to what's going on there. But just quickly, India are playing Pakistan on Friday in the Women's Asia Cup as well. They've had a good start. They beat Sri Lanka in their opening game. They're thrashing Malaysia at the moment. They're going to play the UAE next, and then Pakistan on the Friday as well. So another India-Pakistan match to look forward to. The women don't, I think, they lost once to Pakistan in their history.
Yep, I think.
Something like that. Once,
right. Yeah.
Maybe twice. No more than two. I think it's just the once, and I think it's by about 2 runs. It was a very close game anyway, and that was a really off day by India and a really on day for Pakistan. There's a massive gulf between those two sides. So you'd expect India to come good on Friday against Pakistan. We'll try and keep you as posted as we can on the Women's Asia Cup as well in the coming days. But that's all we've got time for on this episode. So thank you very much for listening and sharing in our frustrations, no doubt, about the lack of information on Jasprit Bumrah. They don't talk about Bumrah. Hopefully they will in the next few days and we get some more information. Thanks very much for listening and do join us next time.